I haven't read Ed Burns, but I know about Ed Burns, and I'd love to talk about it because, I mean, I think the Ed Burns story is a really, really good illustration. A lot of people feel like, okay, so you've got 1% women directors directing commercials, you've got 4% women directing studio features and whatever. You know, when I started this effort, it was about 13% women directing television. You know, what's the problem? And I remember one of the national executive directors of the Directors Guild of America, my union, was, you know, I was saying, why is it that women aren't working? What's going on here? And he said, you know, it's a conundrum. None of us have been able to figure it out, you know, and people seem to think often that women don't work hard enough, and they look at somebody like Ed Burns, who came out of, you know, this working class, you know, Catholic family, and he wrote this script, and you know, and he got his friends together and he shot it, and he made the Brothers McMullen, and it became this huge hit, and he turned it into this massive career. Why can't you women do that? And to ask that question, it indicates a lack of understanding about what the fundamental problem is. You know, why women, you know, what is unconscious and conscious bias about? You know, why have women been so unable to move themselves into success as directors in the American film industry? And it isn't because women aren't smart, and it isn't because women aren't great storytellers, and it isn't because women aren't tenacious and working hard enough. Ed Burns is this, you know, highly privileged, super good-looking white guy, and he was, you know, working, you know, was able to get himself, you know, onto sets and working with some very high-level people. And I'm not saying he isn't immensely talented, and he is, and there are lots of talented people in this industry, but for a cute guy like Ed Burns to, you know, maneuver himself in, you know, he's already got the credibility of being, you know, good-looking white guy who's a good actor and a good writer. It's very easy for him to talk his way, you know, into business relationships that a woman simply couldn't do. You know, you know, from the get-go, you don't have the kind of credibility that a guy has, even a guy of color. So it's not correct to say that the way Ed Burns did it is something that could be mirrored by a woman. And once he had finished the film, for example, he was able to get it to Steven Spielberg. You know, it's the ease. I'm not saying anything is easy. Everything is difficult. It's a very competitive business. But for somebody, you know, good-looking kid like Ed Burns to be able to take his film and, you know, get it to Steven Spielberg is possible. For a woman, it's virtually impossible. Actually, my kids went to school where Steven Spielberg sent his kids, and my kids were classmates of the godchildren of Steven Spielberg, and I talked to him, you know, several times and told him how much I admired him and that I was a filmmaker. Well, if I were a guy, he might have said, why don't you come observe with me? Or, hey, you know, let me know what you've been doing. And I know he does that all the time because he's incredibly generous. But that kind of thing doesn't happen when you're a woman. You know, part of it is you know, probably to do with sexuality, but you know, a large part of it is also that women just are not taken seriously. So even somebody like, you know, Catherine Hardwicke, she, you know, made 13, and she was able to pull together, I think, about $2 million to make 13, but that was after she had already established an immensely successful career as a production designer. I mean, any woman, it's so difficult. It's so much more difficult as a woman to maneuver yourself inside the castle walls, to get a job, to get a paying job as a storyteller in American entertainment media in Hollywood. I mean, it's virtually impossible. They're all male, and they're also all the same males. I mean, the incredible thing about Hollywood, which is a really small industry, is that they're all the same guys who are, you know, at the top. They're the guys who are at the top in the Directors Guild are the same guys who are at the top in the PGA and the WGA and, you know, in the Academy of Motion Pictures. You know, they're all the same, and it really is like a club. And the Directors Guild really does function like a private club. It doesn't really function like a union. It doesn't equally represent all of its members. They do advance each other at the top. And so it's very, very hard to enter as a woman.